Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to my channel. My name is Joanna. If this is your first time watching me, thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoy this information. And I hope it helps you in some way, shape, or form to help you embody more of your powerfulness. So if you are into that sort of thing, if you want to feel more empowered, if you want to feel being at your best, then I hope this information is going to help you achieve just that. If you feel that this information would be helpful to somebody else, I would love, my team and I would love for you to share this information, because at the end of the day, the more empowered people we have, the less we feel the need to fight. And at the end of the day, fighting is notorious for not creating peace, but also fighting all the time is very exhausting. And we are now tired of the fight. And this is a big metaphor. It's being tired of the fighting on the outside, but equally so, the fighting on the inside. So what I'm really talking about is our inner wars. For those of you who are returning, thank you so much for being here. Without you, I wouldn't do this. And I always say I love what I do, for the most part, when I don't resist, and I resist a lot. All right, speaking of shadows, since my work is pretty much, the extent of my work is about overcoming and integrating shadows, not getting rid of shadows, but integrating shadows, so that shadows become our allies and not our enemy. One of my shadows is the constant fear that what I am going to say is somehow going to be not right or wrong. So my ego constantly judges what comes through me. And the only way that I can have this information flow through me in a nice way, I have to deal with this shadow. And the way I deal with this particular shadow for me is I constantly have to remind myself that I am not here to prove anything, sell anything, force you to do anything, change you in any way. I am not here to do any of that. What I'm doing simply is I'm sharing information. And if some of that information happens to land for you, and it lands in a way that helps you reshape your mind from inside out, and that shift translates into your outside experiences, then that is the icing on the cake. So I'm talking about this because it's a form of detachment from the ego that's constantly judging. And it's interesting as I'm talking about it, because this is essentially our theme right now. This is what we're going through. So since we're getting to the time of year that is close to ending 2024 and beginning of 2025, we're at that space where most people, or a lot of people, I should say, have visions for themselves. I forget what it's called, but it's people tend to write out their visions, their expectations for next year. And since we're in that space right now, I thought, well, let's see what's in store for 2025. Not only as a collective, but also more specifically to you. So I have divided this this forecast, if you will, to 4 sections. It will be a general feel for general public, for the collective, and then it will be more individual ones. So if you're drawn to more than one pile, then that just simply means that something out of these 2 piles is likely going to take shape in your life. And it'll likely have information that will help you solidify the right framework for what it is that you want to experience for 2025 and beyond. And one of the messages that I received a few weeks ago is that 2025 is going to be a very pivotal year. Pivotal in the sense that it is a year where whatever structures we put in, whatever structures we create, it is very likely that these structures will have a very long very long-reaching effect. In other words, what we put in place in 2025 is likely going to serve us for many, 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 many years to come. It becomes our new foundation. So logically speaking, it only makes sense to me as a human person is that we better put the right things in 2025 if you want to experience whatever it is. We have to plan accordingly. So because we are in a big shift right now, and you wouldn't be watching this if you lived somewhere off the grid, because I was going to say, unless you live off the grid somehow, then you can see the whole world is, well, changing really, really fast. But actually what I'm hearing is it's not so much that the world is changing, it's the world is adapting to new frequency, as if to say new higher frequency is now part of Earth, and we are needing to integrate with that. And in order to integrate with this higher frequency, we have to shed our old dense frequency. Things like, well, the opposite of love, fear-based. So I have a metaphor here. And the metaphor is, if you were to look at a house tumbling down, and that's all you saw, just the house tumbling down, you'd likely go, oh my God, that's terrible, look what's happening. But if you were to see beyond that, if you were to see the bigger picture, you would see potentially that the reason why this house is tumbling down is it's so that it can, in its place, so that in something in its place can be built, something that's more structurally sound and something that's more capable of helping us create more of what we want. Okay. So we are in that space right now where we are deciding what is it that we want, be it collectively and individually. And each person will have his or her own answer. But collectively speaking, we are simply seeking more peace. We are seeking more peace. And peace is an interesting thing to qualify, because we know the feeling of peace, but many people would describe peace in different ways. So peace to me, for example, one of the ways that I would feel at peace with myself is if I had no longer judgments about who I am, and also judgments out for the world. I would still have discernment, but I wouldn't have these harsh judgments. So in order to experience more peace or more peace collectively, we have to take care of the judgments. And judgments are like a very sharp knife. And I believe Alan Watts said this once. Or intellect, thoughts are like a sharp knife. They divide. And when there is division, we tend to live in separateness. When that happens, we see the world as black and white, good or bad, nice, not nice. We live in polarities. In order to not live in polarities and therefore experience more inner peace, we have to integrate our polarities. And when we are at odds with ourselves, how do I say this? If we are at odds with ourselves, number one, there will be relatively less peace inside. But when we are at odds with ourselves, we're also often at odds with another, because I have part of you in me, you have part of me in you. And we tend to, for example, we tend to see people as different. Yes, but on some level, we are actually all the same. We're all the same. We are unique. We experience things in different ways, or we have our own unique experiences, our own point of views. That's what makes us unique. But we are all the same. We come from the same space. In fact, we all come from oneness. So, because we come from oneness, but we live in separation of ourselves, we are in a space where we're always needing to appease our conflicts. My apologies, my camera just shut off. So, collectively speaking, we are seeking more peace. Individually speaking, we are seeking more peace. And in order to experience more peace, we have to stop fighting. We have to stop fighting with ourselves, and then we will likely not want to fight as much with somebody else. And that's going to bring us a lot more peace. And I guess that's the ideal. But it doesn't mean that the ideal is impossible. It's going to take us some time to get there. And the reason why it's going to take us sometimes to get there, to that space of oneness, unity, collectively more peace, because each person individually has to deal with his or her own inner shadow. Okay? And shadow is what holds us back. So the more we hold ourselves back, the less we are in experience of what could be and your potential. In other words, in order for us to experience more of our potential collectively, each person individually has to recognize his or her own inner potential. You and I are a walking potential. We are a walking potential. To the extent to which you experience your life will be proportionally equal to how you see yourself and what you believe about yourself. In other words, what you believe, what we believe, runs our world. It's not that it runs our world, it's what we believe we create. A simple example, if we believe in lack more so than abundance, we will likely keep on recreating more lack because that's where the energy goes. On the other hand, if we embody our greatness, if we embody our potential, we can become anything we want. But in order to become anything you want, you first have to believe that you can become that. And I know the ego will say, well, I can't become a cat. Yeah, because you are literally structurally configured not to believe that. Trust me when I tell you. Well, don't trust anything I say, but believe me when I tell you. If you can get to a space where you are vibrationally embodying a cat, and every ounce of you is convinced, it's not a convinced, you just know in your body that you're a cat, I bet you're going to shift into a cat because you become its vibration. So is it impossible? No. Is it probable? Not likely. Because that would take, I would say, lifetimes of constant training the mind. I don't even know how that would work. You have to become its vibration. But we don't have to become cats. That's not what this is about. All we have to do is become less resistant to the change that we are experiencing. And we are all experiencing often dramatic changes. And what I'm getting is that change is not so much of a problem. Change in itself is not the problem. What the problem is letting go. The problem is letting go of what once was, but that's no longer supporting us. So collectively, we are going through a lot of change right now. And collectively, we are needing to let go of our past, that which has defined us. And we have to find a new way or a different way to see ourselves, realize that we are capable of so much more than we have been programmed to believe, and then embody that. And with that embodiment, nothing is impossible. Virtually nothing is impossible. But first, to embody that, you have to believe it. Do you believe you're capable of anything that you want? Within limits. We're not talking about cats. Do you know inside of yourself that doesn't matter what, the universe is always going to give you what you need on a vibrational level? It's like one of the laws. The universe can only meet you on your vibration. It cannot give you more than what you believe in. It's not that it can't. Even if it did, you would reject it because you're in opposition to it. Here's the funny thing. Not funny, but funny. Oftentimes what we want, we are actually internally in opposition to it. In other words, often what we want is something we don't really believe in, or we believe that somehow it's going to be taken away, or some other belief system. When I work with clients, one of the easiest examples is relationships. By far, the biggest culprit in relationships that are not working out is if there's a series of relationships and the person has a specific pattern of relating with somebody, it almost always goes to the place of I'm not worthy of being loved, or I'm not enough. And because that is because it's who they are, it's because they claim that, it's a belief system, they keep experiencing everything relative to that belief. So the experiences won't change. The inner dialogue has to change, but it's not a conscious dialogue. That's the problem. It's not a conscious dialogue. It's the unconscious programming, and there is a lot of it. And I don't think we're here to change every single subconscious program in our mind, because I feel that would take lifetimes. I feel that we're here to take one of the big ones. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. I am not powerful. The ones that limit our potential. Okay? So if you have grown up with the idea that you are somehow not good enough, which is very prevalent in human society, when you transform that, and when you realize that that is a lie, that that isn't even real, it's simply a product of your mindset. And when you realize that you have this mindset about you, and you are the holder of your mindset, you are holding a mindset that belongs to you. You're the boss. When you realize that you have power over your mindset, which right now is the other way around, this is when your whole world begins to change. This is the power. And I want to show you how this is the power you have. You are so powerful. You are so powerful as a being that you create an illusion of being less than powerful, and you give it power and you believe it. You're that powerful. You're that powerful. You are so powerful that you disempower yourself. How crazy is that? Now, you don't do it consciously. It's not a conscious thing. It is very much subconscious, but this is what we do each and every day. Each and every day. When I say to myself, I'm not good enough, that's my programming. It has power over me. When I recognize that pattern, go, wait a minute, that's coming from some sort of a story. Let me deal with the story. Let me shift the story. let me shift my point of view. Everything becomes different, right? So likely we are all going through some sort of reforming or reshaping of how we see things, what we see for ourselves, what we would like to see for ourselves, and most importantly, what is it that we want to create? What is it that we want to create? What is it that we want to create? Not what we're supposed to create, not what we should. What is it that we want to create? If we want to create more abundance in the world, we have to become it. We have to become it. The universe is abundant in everything, including lack, L-A-C-K. It's abundant in that too. So if you believe in lack, lack is going to follow. But it's not as simple as saying, "Oh, I believe I'm going to have lots of money tomorrow." But your inner program is like, "Yeah, right. No, money's not for you." Unless you reach that deeper part of you and shift it from that perspective, you can convince yourself that you believe in something, but you actually don't, because you don't live it. You're not being it. You have to claim it. You have to claim it. So, for example, if you want to feel as an empowered person, you have to claim your power back. It's not even back because you didn't give it away. You're just not claiming it. You're not being it. It's owning it. It's becoming it. It's not becoming arrogant. That's not being empowered. That's being in the ego that has fears and insecurities, and it's actually quite weak, but thinks it's really strong. No, you owning your power. It's like you standing in your own light and you're like, "I'm just being me. I'm just being me. I don't have to advertise anything. I'm just being me." In fact, the more empowered you are, the more you own your power, the less you try to convince others of how powerful you are, because you have no need. Zero. For what? For what? I don't need to convince you of who I am. This is who I am. There's a saying that people are often afraid of their own power, and I believe it's true. I don't know where the saying originated from, but I had an experience where I was allowed to feel what I would call was a much bigger version of my power. It freaked me out. It freaked me out. Freaked me out. And I actually said, "Why am I so scared right now?" And this is what the voice said. "This is what they say when they say you are afraid of your power. This is it." And the reason why I was so afraid is because in that moment, I didn't know whether my ego was going to be able to handle it, whether my ego was going to be able to handle it. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. So it's not that you are afraid of your own power. It's your ego is afraid of you owning your power, because the moment you take your power back, your ego is no longer in control of you. You're the boss. Doesn't mean you don't have an ego, but it no longer controls you, or doesn't control you as much as it once did. This is what it means to own your power. And this is how powerful we all are. So what is the energy that Earth is working through right now? Or for 2025, what is the energy? And I thought this was beautiful, because this is the energy of compassion. I feel we could all use a little bit more of compassion towards ourselves and towards another. Compassion also goes hand in hand with less judgments. And of course, if we want to experience more peace in our world, we have to be less judgmental. Well, we don't have to do anything, but apparently we want to. And that has to start with ourselves. If we are harshly judging ourselves, I'm not saying we shouldn't have discernment, no. But when we are harshly judging ourselves, and it comes from a space of hate, disapproval of yourself, or somebody else's disapproval of you. So that means that every time you judge yourself, it's like you're hurting yourself with a knife. stabbing you in the back. You, by judging, you hurt yourself. You hurt yourself. You hurt yourself by judging you. Take that. Why would you want to hurt yourself? How does that make any sense? Well, unless you like to be in pain. Hey, if you like to be in pain, go for it. Some pain is good. I'm introducing a little bit of humor here because it's a very big topic, but I want to also add a little bit of lightness. The purpose of the humor is to keep showing you how freaking powerful we all are. Okay? No, love doesn't solve everything, but it certainly helps with solving anything. That's a very powerful statement. So, love will not take your troubles with your money away, for example, but it will help you deal with your money problems in a different way. And just in that, you'll have relief. And it's interesting that this is coming out of compassion because it's now talking about money, which is something very 3D. It's almost as if to say, to experience more, that makes so much sense, to experience more abundance in our lives, we have to embody our own inner abundance. If, this is just a funny metaphor, I think that if love was to be encapsulated and sold, it would probably be the most expensive thing in the world. Why? Everyone needs love. Everyone needs love. They said it's like comfort food. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel good. When you don't see your own abundance inside of you, you will tend to seek out for outside abundance in order to identify with it, I guess. In other words, if you feel poor inside and then you attract a whole bunch of money, unless you do some psychological shifting, you're going to be a poor person with a lot of money. And what you're going to do is your poor attitude or conditioning is going to get rid of your money because it's not in alignment. It's not in alignment. Same goes with love, same goes with anything. So in order to put the right framework in 2025, we have to choose differently in terms of what we believe and what we don't believe. If you don't believe that you can be abundant, you likely won't be. Abundance may want to come to you, but you're going to reject it. You're going to self-sabotage. So this is a really good time for working on our limitations, our perceived limitations, that's what it's all about. It's letting go of our perceived limitations, because remember, we are a human being, we have a body, but we are way more than that. It's just we have a temporary amnesia. Okay? So lesson number one for humanity is remember where we come from and ultimately what our home is. Planet Earth is a holiday. We are on holiday, if you will, but we're going back home. And yes, it may feel like a very long holiday, 80 plus years, but in the scheme of things and in the grandness of the universe, it's just a minuscule time, let's say. But it is your world, you're experiencing it, and it's all you know. That's all we know right now in this moment. And we know that because it's mostly our programming. But there's a deeper knowing that we have within us. Every single being, human being, has this deeper knowing where they come from and what their home is. However we arrive at it, it's almost irrelevant, but we will all arrive at it eventually. It's going to take some time. And the more we arrive at this remembering of who we really are, the more, I want to say, the more our possibilities become so much more. Because let's face it, when you remember who you remember that you are part of a creator, okay? Whatever he, she is, you can't define it. And as part of being part of that creator, whatever has created you, you have its energy within you. And that thing is something quite powerful to have created you. That lives within you. Every single being has it. Some humans are more conscious of it than others. I don't believe animals are, but I could be wrong. Thank you. They're saying to me, animals and organisms perceive far more than we think they do. I don't know, I'm not a scientist or biologist, but I suspect even logically that makes sense to me because we only know what we know. We only know what we know. I, for one, believe that dogs are smarter than some people, sometimes maybe even most people, but that's just my little quirky judgment. Okay. So where were we going with this? Love. To remember where we come from. And that comes in many different ways. It comes through cultivation of quietness and peace. Because this understanding, this remembering, comes from the heart. It's in the heart. It's at the very center of our heart. That knowing, that remembering where we come from, the source of what is within us. It's in our hearts. So I would say it would behoove us to connect to our hearts more. What is it that we need to rethink? Structures, spiritual commitment. So the simple message of this is, what is it that we want to experience, number one? And number two, what belief systems must we have to support what it is that we want to experience? If we don't have the right things put in place to help us experience whatever that is, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So the first thing that we need to look at is collectively, what do we believe in? Who do we believe in? Why do we believe what we believe in? And why do we believe in this person or that? Why? Our belief systems. And our belief systems are very much defined culturally. Okay, so we have cultural belief systems and we have also individual belief systems, societal belief systems. I'm not talking about changing completely our belief systems. I'm just talking about changing the belief systems that are outdated, that are limiting, and that are not going to serve based on where we want to go. Okay? And where we want to go is apparently more peace. I'll vie for that. Okay. So this represents endings and beginnings, or letting go of certain structures. This can also imply a religion for you, spirituality, religion. What do you believe in? Do you believe in a religion? Do you believe, what is it that you believe in? Okay. And not judging it as right or wrong, but looking at it and asking, is this still serving me? Do I still believe in that? Do I still believe in what I believe in? Maybe once I was led to believe that God was this male sitting on the throne, usually depicted with a beard, older age, and he was kind of sitting there waiting to fuck up, for you to fuck up and to judge you. By the way, that was my belief system. And now I know that it's none of that. None of it. None of it. In fact, what I now know is that God can't be defined. Cannot be defined. It cannot be defined. It cannot be put in a box. Can't. Too big. So we try our best to make sense out of what God is. But God is incomprehensible. That's just the way it is. However, whatever God you pick for you, make sure that it's an all-loving and compassionate God who does not judge like you do. If you believe in a judgmental God, that's not God at all. Why? Because God has no ego. Judgments are connected to the ego. If you believe in a judgmental God, you believe in a God that's ego-based. God has no ego. Okay? God doesn't judge. It's unconditional. It's almost incomprehensible for some people to believe based on what they were taught. Some people were taught that you have to beg for forgiveness. And even then, you're going to be still a person who sinned and you're going to go to hell. Some people believe that. They live by it. It's not good nor bad. It's a belief. And it's a very rigid belief. And it's a belief that is, in this particular instance, very fear-based. God is all love. Fear is the absence of it. But here's the thing. Love is all there is. So there can't be any absence of it. There can only be a denial of it. So what I'm being asked to say is this, if it feels comfortable for you. You have a God within you, okay? Whatever God you believe in, I would say, okay, keep it if you want to, but it's infinitely more than that. And it's very powerful. You have that within you. Every one of you does. Okay? Whether you choose to believe it, whether you choose to entertain it, whether you choose to socialize with it, whether you choose to have a relationship with it, that's all up to you. Not right or wrong, it's all up to you. However, your own relationship with God, the better relationship, the closer relationship you have with your God, the infinite, the more your life changes. It just does. I can't explain how, it just does. This does not talk about blind faith. There's no faith required. If you have faith, then you don't really know it. This is knowing it. This is knowing. And many people right now are on the search of what real God is. And that's very interesting because it cannot be defined. There's very different ways of defining God and scriptures and all that stuff, and all of it is fine, but that's just a depiction. It's so much more than that. Like I said, God cannot be defined. It can't be put in a box. Yet, God can be and is everything. It's a bit of a mind fuck. It's a paradox. So, the other thing that I would suggest is don't put God on a pedestal. Unless you're willing to put yourself on a pedestal, in which case I would say, why would you need to put yourself on a pedestal? Do you think you're better than everybody else? Do you want to be better than everybody else? Why? And by the way, there's no judgments here. Don't put God on a pedestal. Why? Because when you put God on a pedestal, you deem to believe as God being somehow better, somehow more important than you. This is going to sound very strange for some. And it even sounds strange for me as Joanna the ego. When I say God is not important than you. God is as important as you, and you are as important as God is. Why? Because you are part of it. It is part of you. So if you deem God as important, you are equally as important. That is very difficult for the ego to accept when it's been trained that you are less than. You're not less than, you're part of it. You're part of it. So what do you believe in? Who do you believe in? Who do you choose to believe in? Where are we defining that? Hangman in reverse. This is seeing new perspectives. In fact, everything is about seeing new perspectives. You've heard the saying that the moment you shift how you see things, what you look at will change. This is what we're talking about. We're also starting to see what safety really is and what safety isn't. I mean, we have the basic idea of safety, but then we are in a space of reframing what we see as safe. Not quite sure what that means, but that's what's coming through. And how we arrive at safety and what constitutes safety. For example, if you don't feel safe being in your own skin, then you must have a reason for it. You must have a reason for it. So in order for you to feel safer, you have to deal with the reason why you still feel not safe being in your body, which means you are holding on to some kind of trauma. And that experience, that emotional experience, hasn't been integrated, hasn't been expressed and or integrated. Okay. And what I'm being asked to say is that when we don't integrate our trauma, our experiences, we tend to live in separation. So integrating our experiences allows us to shift our perception. Okay. You heard the saying, it's not so much what you see, it's how you see it or how you choose to see it. We are learning how to see things differently, or we are training ourselves to see things differently. For example, the fifth dimension, let's use this metaphor, exists within us right now. Like it's all merging. Like the third and the fourth and the fifth dimension is all at the same time. The only reason why we're not experiencing fifth dimension is because we are vibrating at a third dimensional frequency. Okay? Shifting our perspectives helps us shift our vibration and frequency so that we begin to experience more of the quote-unquote 5D. For example, when we shift our perspectives and instead of being always in our head, we look at things from a perspective of the heart. Number one, we are re-engaging our heart in the process, which makes any experience a lot more pleasurable, I would say. But we're also able to come up with many ingenious solutions that we previously didn't have because we were only resorting to our thinking box. And our thinking boxes are very small, right? And to come out of boxes is to shift perspective. So we are all collectively either looking at shifting perspectives or we are choosing to see different perspectives, higher perspectives, and more elevated perspectives. The whole idea of judgment comes in, which is, as far as I'm concerned, we live in a very judgmental world. I certainly come from a very judgmental background. I still catch myself being judgmental all the time. It's work in progress. I'm just a human being. But I'm much more aware of the judgments I hold of myself and sometimes other people. I'm being perfectly honest. It's just automatic. However, I've learned to catch myself. And when I catch myself, which is a lot of the time, maybe even most of the time, I'm certainly not there. But when I catch myself, it's like, here I go, here's Here's judgmental Joanna again, because she's coming from certain programming, very judgmental. Okay. All right. I pause and give myself a moment to take a breath, and it's like, okay, I don't want to feel that. Because when I judge, it feels a certain way. It doesn't feel good. To me, at least, it doesn't feel good. Now, it might be satisfying for some people because there's anger and there's all that, and sometimes that feels good. But bottom line is this. If being judgmental doesn't feel good, because when you're being judgmental about yourself, when you judge yourself harshly or another, I want you just to kind of pay attention to how it feels. Not to judge it, but just to notice how it feels. And I bet it doesn't feel really good because it kind of feels heavy. It feels kind of heavy. But if we can catch ourselves and recognize when we are being judgmental, when we are judging another, and we do this it's like so instantaneous, it's not even funny. That's why I'm saying this is a process. This takes time. To become aware takes time. But when we become more conscious of when we judge, how we judge, including and starting with ourselves, by catching ourselves, we can make a different choice. And by catching ourselves over and over and over again, it'll become something that we do all the time. We catch ourselves all the time, and eventually it's like we're just going to flip to being less judgmental people. In other words, it's not gonna take so much conscious effort. We're just going to naturally become less judgmental people. But at first, it's an effort because it's like we are rewriting our program. We do it over and over again until it becomes our new way of being. So it takes practice. If you decide to judge yourself less and judge another, just be on the lookout for how you judge yourself. But don't judge yourself to judge yourself for it. Look at where you judge yourself or another so that you can educate yourself. Okay, this is me judging. Okay, how does it feel? Do I really want to judge? What would it be if I didn't judge? What would I do? I could do nothing. I could find something nice about the person. I would be less energetically involved, because when you judge, it's like you put your claws in it. Why would you? You know what I mean? But if you like to judge and you want to be that person, I have no judgment about it whatsoever. You can do whatever you want. But I know, because I know what it's like to be a judgmental person. I know that it doesn't feel good. I know that. And I know what it feels like when I'm not being judgmental. It's literally like black and white. For one, when I'm not being judgmental, I'm automatically being more loving. I don't have to be loving. I don't have to become loving. By not being judgmental, I automatically become more loving. I don't have to do a thing. One of the ways to learn to love yourself is perhaps to become a little bit less judgmental. That doesn't mean you lose your discernment and you eat 10 bags of cookies every day, because you know that's not good for you. So if you are not having a good discernment, you're going to get yourself into trouble. I'm not talking about that. I think you all know when I say judgments, I think you all know what I mean. All you have to do is turn on a program, and especially the real, what is it? The real TV, realistic, not realistic, reality TV. You want to observe some judgments and cattiness? Watch some of those. Instantly, I ask Joanna sometimes watch these shows. It's my guilty pleasure. I'm just fascinated. I just love watching how people interact with each other, and I'm just like, I'm fascinated because I can see all the different layers, and it's just like, wow, this is crazy how people do things. But anyway, so you could say I'm watching it and judging it. Maybe, yeah, probably. I'm not going to deny it, but it's my little guilty pleasure. Okay. Incidentally, these type of shows wouldn't sell if it was all happy, happy, happy. Unfortunately, drama sells. What can I say? And there's a saying, if it bleeds, it leads. unless a story, quote unquote, bleeds, it's not going to get attention. We're kind of screwed up that way. All it says is that we like drama. We like drama, right? Like we like drama. And I'm talking about myself. Point in case, why do I watch these shows? Because I enjoy, there's a part of me that enjoys watching drama. It's my guilty pleasure, right? It's a little bit like an alcohol. Have a little drink, and it could be a good thing, but if I have it every day, well, that becomes a problem. So harmony. Being at peace with yourself often comes from being in harmony with yourself. It's your sacral chakra. We are being asked to clear some of our sacral chakra stuff. Incidentally, the sacral chakra is where the divine feminine is. Okay. What I'm hearing is that culturally, the feminine has been suppressed for a very long time. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. It's just the way it is. In fact, the new age of Aquarius, I believe, is all about divine feminine. At least this is the information that I'm getting, and that's what's flowing through. A lot of healing of the masculine, toxic masculine, but a lot of healing of the suppressed feminine. A lot of that. So likely there will be some old wounds being that have not been expressed that will come up to the surface. Any type of abandonment, any kind of mother, quote unquote, stuff, any kind of also want to say unworthiness, not being emotionally taken care of, fears around not being emotionally supported. A lot of that, and that will also affect your money in the bank. A lot of that is coming up to the surface. And the other way I want to say it is something that if you feel that you're struggling with, that's the area you struggle with, it would behoove you to do some work with it, so that when you are setting structure in 2025, you're going to be setting structures and foundation that will support you in whatever it is that you want to experience. So if you want a partner, for example, if you want a loving partner in your life, you first have to look at how you identify yourself with respect to having a loving partner, and look at the underlying conditioned belief systems that stand in the way of you having that partner right now. What sort of belief system is there? Okay. Are you afraid you're not good enough? Are you afraid you can't have what you want? I mean, are you afraid of being emotionally abandoned, or abandoned so you don't trust? I mean, we all come with stories. We all come with stories, and they're very colorful stories. And some stories are heart-wrenching. If we can find a way to release ourselves from the stories so they no longer have a hold on us, then we can create our new reality, which means we have to face our shadows, we have to face our quote-unquote darkness, and we have to integrate it. We have to make it our allies rather than enemies. Okay. I also feel that it would behoove every single individual to have some sort of a spiritual practice. Doesn't mean you have to have a religion, doesn't mean you have to do yoga 2 hours a day. Something that helps you connect with your spirit self. Because at the end of the day, we are, well, spirit. Okay? We come from spirit, we are spirit. God is considered, well, spirit. Spirit and God, I guess it's one and the same. I don't know what the differentiation is, but maybe spirit is singular. Anyway, we all are part of spirit. We are all spirit. We are all spirit having a physical body, or experiencing life through physical body. So there is that part of us that's more than the flesh. Some sort of way to connect with that part of us, which is where our inner knowledge is, where wisdom is, where love is. Also, it's where, quote unquote, your God is. That would help us with the process of coming back to more love. Okay. By having some sort of a spiritual practice, It's you remembering who you are, where you come from. And at the end of the day, why you're here. And there's many different answers as to why we're here. You know, part of my why I'm here is so that I do this, and it's wonderful. But at the end of the day, I am here to love. How I love, that's up to me. This here is how I love. How I make food, it's how I love. So it's not the romantic love. It's we are all love. There's no separation. Okay, the only separation lives in the mind. We're all love. And what we choose to do with that, how, when, with whom, that all depends on each and every individual. But to the extent to how much we share our love will be dependent on what we are holding on to in terms of our thinking, in terms of our belief systems. Okay? I think I said this in a previous video last week, but I think it was something along the lines, if you woke up tomorrow remembering that you are love and you just became love, you became love, your identity was love, and you owned it, how would your life change? Would your life be any different? I suspect yes. I suspect yes. So let's move on to each individual piles. I will likely be doing the 2025 individual zodiac signs. I think I've decided to do it. If you want it, I know many of you have asked, because many of you have said that the information that comes through is valid. You've experienced it, so I'm glad to hear that. I love that feedback. So I've decided I might do them a little bit shorter this year. But if you want one, get yourself on my mailing list, and that link is below. And once I have them up, you'll receive an email from me so that you will have them as soon as they come out. All right, let me see what we have for each individual pile. So again, if you're drawn to more than one pile, there's likely something in each pile for you. So what is your energy? What is most likely the energy you're going to be working with in 2025? Universal love. And the message is, the frequency of universal love activates the connection that we feel to each other, to our planet, and to the whole of existence itself. So very, very closely related to the energy for the collective. I'm drawn to the numbers 4 or 4s, which, by the way, I see them all the time. To me, it's a new construct, new foundation. And if you're pile number 1, let me just see how this may present itself to you. You are literally rebuilding your life all over again. But it's not a scary thing. You've decided to let something go, and you've decided to, quote unquote, thank you, start fresh. And for many of you, this is going to be regarding career, so money connection. How does this relate to universal love? I don't know. I'm just going to keep on going. Structures. Okay. So this is feeling very much about the physical nature of your world, about the practicality nature of your world. You are looking at your world, and you are. It's interesting because I see you having boundaries, but it's almost like you had boundaries, but it's like I don't know if you forgot your boundaries. It's like they're kind of sort of there, but they're not there, and it doesn't feel right. And what you're doing is you are making your boundaries much more clear. So in 2025, you are likely to claim your space, whatever that means. Confidence levels, you are likely going to start feeling more sure of yourself. You are starting to believe in your abilities and your capabilities. You are choosing to decide to no longer question yourself or doubt yourself. That's a big deal because it doesn't take place overnight. It's a fairly lengthy process. You are essentially reprogramming yourself in terms of how you see and how you view and how you see yourself. And you're putting certain structures in place in order so that you can experience a much bigger experience. Like I see you coming out of a fairly small, and I want to say sheltered energy, and you are entering this new phase when it's much more open, but it's empty. And when I say it's empty, it's not that it's empty because nothing is there. It's empty because you haven't created yet. So you are moving into a space where you are going to feel like you are much more the boss of your own creation versus being told by someone else what to do and how to do it. So you might experience a bit of a rebellious streak in 2025. And here's what I want to say. Make sure it doesn't hurt you. Sometimes if we're too rebellious, it can hurt us. So whatever that message is, it probably won't make any sense to you right now, but if at some point it's going to make sense. So you are likely going to experience being rebellious. But I want to say is make sure that rebellion doesn't hurt you. Make sure you use your rebelliousness wisely. Okay? What are the themes that you are likely to experience? Oh my gosh, look at this, 44 and 12. Okay, this is really interesting. If that isn't a confirmation, I don't know what is. Okay, so here's how I take the secrecy. It's not so much secrets on the outside. It could be, but this is what you have been keeping. This is what you have been keeping inside of you. You are coming out. It's like you're coming out and you're showing people who you really are. And that feels a little bit anxious because you are apparently not used to fully showing up. Most people aren't because of the wonderful belief systems. But because you are choosing to no longer restrict yourself as much, you are beginning to see yourself more than what you think other people see you. It's not how they see you, it's how you think they see you. So you are also letting go of some judgments. You are letting go of the way you judge yourself, and you will automatically release judgments towards others much more readily. But you're also going to be less preoccupied with how other people see you. In other words, you are likely going to start experiencing less need for validation. And just so we're clear, when someone tells me that they're happy with the work I've done with them and they're just amazing, that makes me feel good. It validates the work that I do. It's important that my work at some point is validated. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm doing any good. But I can't depend on that validation. I can't, because that's attaching to it. So you're no longer as attached to what other people are saying to you, because people or about you, or what you think they're saying about you. Because the more people will say whatever they want, people will think whatever they want. You have very little control over that. However, the control you have, if you will, is how you take that experience and whether it's make it personal or not. So you are becoming someone who takes things far less seriously and far less personal. If you can achieve that in 2025, you deserve a medal, because that's freeing to me. That being in that space, that is so freeing. It's not that you don't care what people say. It's that it's not that you don't care what people say. You just don't attach yourself to what they say. So if they say something quote unquote negative, yeah, it may hurt your feelings a little bit, but in 5 minutes you're gonna just move on. You're not gonna hold on to it. Whereas before, I feel that you were used to holding on to it. And if you're someone who's used to validation, chances are you often hold on to what people say, especially when it's something negative. And typically you'll forget the positive, but you'll hold on to the negative. Okay? Because it feeds your shadows. So you are, in 2025, choosing to no longer feed your shadow. Yay to that. Masculine principle. Do you have a need to be right all the time? Do you have a need to be right all the time? Here's what I'm going to say. You can't be right all the time, because that would make you all-knowing. You can't be all-knowing. It doesn't exist. You can't. It's just impossible. Just impossible. However, just because someone doesn't agree with you does not mean that you are right in your own way. For example, just because someone doesn't believe in what I offer doesn't mean that what I offer is invalid. It absolutely is valid. It's just not aligned with that person. And that's okay. And that's okay. People don't always have to agree with you for you to feel successful. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat to it. If this is not to say that you are always right, because you won't be, and I think I've said this before. So releasing the need to be right or someone to be wrong for you to win, because that's a no win-win situation. You win, they lose. It's like, unless you're playing a game and you're having fun and it's soccer, and yes, of course, you'll have the quote-unquote winner and the loser. But in life, you want to be real. You don't want to play games. I mean, sometimes, in fact, we play games all the time with people. We play games with ourselves. So for you, pile number two, it's no more playing games. Pile number one, it's like no more playing games. No more playing games. Maybe you're used to people playing games with you and you were not confident enough to say stop it, and now you're like, I'm not playing this game anymore. Or maybe you're just becoming more confident and you're saying, you know what? I don't agree with this. I never have. I just never voiced it. But doing it in such a way that is not making the other person feel wrong or you feel right, but it's just more of an exchange of point of view. And it does something beautiful because it allows you to be in a space where you're much more flexible and less rigid. So too much rigidity is very much a masculine trait. There's nothing wrong with that, but too much of anything is not great. You want to be somewhere both. So you want to be both flexible and you want to have some rigidity. You want to be somewhere, somewhere in the middle, whatever that may be. So you are becoming far less rigid. And remember, when you are less rigid, you give the universe permission to actually give you more, just in a way that you're not expecting it. Okay. Also, your expectations are changing. Pile number one. What area of life might this affect you in? Oh, career. So we talked about career. This is career. This is going to likely take place in your career sector. Okay. You are likely someone who is going to either change jobs, start a new job, get clarity on what you want to do for a living as a career. And I see this also as changing paths, which means if you're changing paths, and everything is about change right now, you are likely to start something new, but also means to let something go. So you will be in a process of letting go something to do with your career choices, very likely with your career choices. Okay. And last but not least, capacity to love. So this is about being more open to receiving love. Giving, but being more open to receiving love. How much love do you give? How much love can you give? You can give as much love as you want. The more love you give to yourself, the more love you will give to others. Apparently, that's just naturally how it goes. The more love you give to yourself, the more love you can give to others. In other words, you cannot give something you don't have. But remember, love is not something you have. Love is something you are. Love is not something you have. Love is something you are. And yes, you feel different kinds of loves, but love is something that you are. And it's far beyond the love we have for a child, the love we have for a spouse, the love we have for things. It's that and then some. So the best way that you can ensure that you give as much love as you can possibly give is give, first and foremost, learn how to give love to yourself, and then share that with others. Perhaps you are here to teach people how to love themselves. One of the ways I always say, one of the most, potent ways to learn to love yourself is to face your shadows. It's to integrate your shadows so that you're no longer living at resistance, at odds with yourself. That's one of the best ways, and I would say the quickest, although I don't like putting time frame on it. I would say that's the best way to learn how to love yourself. Self-acceptance, not rejection, no judgments, self-acceptance. So that's what I have for you, pile number 1. Okay, let's see what we have for you, pile number 2. What is the energy that you would like to be working with in 2025? The light. The light. I'm drawn to the number 19, which makes 10. Okay, if you reduce it, it's 10. So this is completion. Thank you. The frequency of the light supports our capacity to create and experience feelings of intense joy and happiness. The more delight we feel, the more delight we evoke in others. So it's a similar message to the last message in pile number 1. You might want to take a look at it. The first question I want to ask you is this. If you were sitting in front of God, whatever he, she, it looked like, and God said to you, source, hey, tell me how you feel about yourself. And you're like, well, God, you're all seeing, you know. And God is like, I do know, but I want to hear your perspective. What would you say? If God asked you how you feel about yourself, what would you say? And do you believe it? Why or why not? Do you believe that you are unconditional love? Do you see yourself as that, or do you see yourself as something different? And by the way, you can choose to see yourself however you want. But depending on how you see yourself, you will share yourself in that capacity with others. So if you see yourself as limited, you will limit yourself in terms of your expression with others. Others will see a limited version of you. Now, unless you want to feel limited, by all means, but if you want to limit yourself, know that you are consciously choosing to limit yourself so that you're still in charge. Do not let your limitations choose for you. Do not let your limitations choose for you. And those are the perceived limitations. I can't be happy. I can't have a loving partner. I can't have a lot of money. It is not the story you tell yourself that you think you want to believe in. It's how you see yourself truly and fully. And that requires some inner knowing. It requires some inner digging. So, for example, if you are feeling unhappy constantly, what is the source of your unhappiness? What is the source of your unhappiness? What is it that you believe is lacking inside of you, not outside, inside of you, that makes you feel unhappy? What's missing? No one loves me. Oh, yeah? Have you asked God if it loves you? It's not that no one loves you, is you don't love yourself is more likely than anything. You don't know you love yourself. Why? Maybe you don't know how. Maybe you don't know how to love yourself. What does it mean to you to love yourself? What does it mean to you to love yourself? When you love somebody, what does it mean to you? When you love somebody, what does it mean? You love them, what does that mean? You expect them, you accept them, you like them, hopefully. You appreciate them, you admire them, you help them be more, you uplift them, you want what's best for them, you want to be their best buddy, you want to, you feel safe with them. Do you feel that way about you? So no, it's not that no one loves you, is you don't know how to love yourself fully yet. And until you learn how to love yourself, you're not going to get what you want. Because what you want comes from you loving yourself first. So I don't know what it is that you want. Could be a relationship, could be anything for that matter. But what they're saying is it's very unlikely for you to really achieve that and hold on to it unless you start with self-love first. Okay? Why? Here's a simple answer. When you love yourself, you're open, you're full. You don't lack anything. You need things, you desire things, but you don't lack anything on the inside. You don't need someone to make you feel good about you because you feel good about you. And the other person, that's the icing on the cake. You don't need someone to constantly approve of you because you approve of you. And when they approve of you, bonus, good for them. Because when they approve of you, they get the best of you. And you are amazing, just as you are. Does that mean that there wouldn't be some things you'd like to, tweak? Of course. We all do. You're no different. But it does not mean that you cannot love yourself fully now. It doesn't mean that at all. All you have to do is choose. So remember the question when God Source asks you, hey, how do you feel about yourself? What would you say? What would you say? What's the theme? Common ground. Okay. So right now I feel like you're kicking tires. You don't know what to do with yourself. You're mad as hell. Something didn't go your way. And either you walked away from a situation or are walking away from a situation or will be in 2025, or you're going to experience some sort of, I don't want to say rejection, but it's like, it feels like you walked out of a place and it's almost like you got pushed out, but you're pretending that you wanted it that way anyway, but you're really, really hurt. So I'm not saying you're going to get hurt in 2025. You're hurting right now. What that's going to do, it's going to reveal the hurt you haven't dealt with yet, and it's in your past. Likely for some of you around the number 7, at the age of 7. It has to do with rejection and risk-taking. Okay, perhaps at some point you did something new and as a child, and some adult or some authority figure has reprimanded you for it. So you pulled away. And whatever the situation is, it's going to reveal what hasn't been dealt with yet. And it feels somewhere in the middle. So again, I am not predicting anything bad happening. I don't predict things. That's not how I work. I can only share with you what I'm perceiving, and there's a likelihood of that happening, but you always have free will and free choice. However, what I am saying is that there's an opportunity for you to close a chapter on a very long-standing, quote-unquote, challenge you've had when it comes to the idea of self-love and rejection. Okay? Likely, if you haven't dealt with the rejection, that means that you are still in rejection of yourself. And when you feel rejected, when you identify as being rejected, you're in that vibration, you're in this harmony of yourself. So you are in conflict. And whatever is going to transpire in 2025 is going to, A, help you reveal that, but two, most importantly, help you let it go so that you can create something new and something different to support you in doing whatever it is that you want. Okay? I want to say this to you. You are stronger than you think. You are stronger than you think. You are stronger than you believe. I would say that to everybody, but I'm going to say it to you for whatever reason, because you are likely to experience a transition. And as this transition starts to happen, you likely are not going to like it. Remember the metaphor I was saying at the very beginning? If you stand in front of a house that's collapsing, you're like, oh my God, that's terrible. But then when you come away and you see the bigger picture and you realize that this has to collapse so that this can be built, you're like, shoo, that's time for celebration. That's how I want you to see it. It's an opportunity for you to change your life for the better, to let go of past dictating your now and your future. So, for example, if you are someone who is very fearful of rejection, then you are likely someone who is more closed off to receiving or being fully open, fully with your heart in relationships, which means people will not get the best of you. Okay? You might come across as someone who's cold if this applies to you. It's not that you're cold, it's that you're not willing to risk pain. So you kind of emotionally, not shut yourself off, but you distance yourself off. So this is talking about emotional distancing. Perhaps in your life, again, around the age of 7, perhaps there was some emotional distancing that you've experienced from a parent or parents, and you actually may have been bullied in the past, not by parents necessarily, but by other kids. Kids are cruel. There might have been an emotional distancing, emotional games, and that made you feel like there is something lacking inside of you. Maybe you're someone who's constantly trying to improve yourself. Here's what I'm going to say. Stop trying to improve yourself. Instead, reconnect with yourself as you are. Claim it, accept it, and then make changes. It would be redundant for me to say that it's not an easy task, but that's what's required. What area this may come up for you in? Temperance. It did come up in reverse. I don't read tarot cards. I just look at the pictures and see what they want to show me. When I look at this message, I feel unsure of myself, which makes sense. I feel unsure of myself when I look at this message. This, whatever temperance means in tarot, I'm going with what I'm getting. I feel unsure of myself. So this is going to, make sense based on I was explaining a moment ago. If you're going to go through some reshuffling, you are likely going to feel unsure of yourself, and that's okay. When we experience a lot of change, particularly when it comes to things like money and relationships and statuses and things like that, it can trigger our fears and our anxieties around the safety and security of our ego, right? But for some reason, you're likely going to feel a little bit insecure at some point in 2025, only to rise again to another level. It's like you have to. Here's what I want to say. The insecurity is reminding you who you are not. You are not the insecurity. You feel insecure and you have your reasons for it, but you are not that insecurity. You are beyond your insecurity. And you're going to be able somehow to see that. You're going to be able to see how what you're feeling is not who you are. And that's somehow going to help you make wiser and bigger choices for yourself going forward. So it looks like the first 2025, you're going to be going through some turmoil, some emotional withdrawal, perhaps. You're going to experience a bit of inner battle. But this is necessary for you to move, I want to say, from dark to light. I don't mean darkness. I mean, it's just a metaphor. You're moving from a very place where you don't have a lot of clarity to a place where you can see so much clearly and so much more. And because of your ability to see this clarity, your abundance naturally just draws to you. You become a much more profound magnet. That makes sense to me. Because again, anything we put forth in 2025 is going to have far-reaching effects. So for you to work on yourself, work with your shadows, inner child, however you come at it, in order for you to become a much more profoundly powerful magnet, imagine the things that you can do, that you could do, and apparently that you will do. So whatever you are letting go in the process, you will recreate, but 10 times better. This is an opportunity for you to recreate, but 10 times better. The question is, do you believe it? Do you believe that you can recreate this 10 times better? And if not, why not? Now, I'm not talking about a situation, and I hope it's none of you, where you lose somebody because they've passed. I'm not saying, oh, don't worry, you'll have it 10 times better. Of course, I'm not saying that. That's pain, that's loss, that can never be replaced. I'm not talking about things like that. I'm talking about relationships, things that haven't been working, jobs, careers. Basically, time to move on. Whatever that is for you, pile number 2, time to move on. And you're going to start to see this reshuffling in spring 2025. Additional message, belonging. So this beautiful Ganesha is very opulent. He's on the move. He knows who he is. He doesn't question his authority. If other people question his authority, okay, he doesn't question his authority. But it doesn't mean that he's not flexible. He just doesn't question his authority. Can you imagine, pile number 2, waking up one day in 2025 and you realize that you are sure of yourself to the point where you don't need others to tell you how powerful you are, how good you are, how valuable you are. I mean, yes, if they say that you've done a good job, I want you to say, thank you. I worked at it really hard. But don't depend on it. Don't be a slave to somebody else's word, because that's when we lose our power. So you are coming into more empowerment, pile number 2. And the reshuffling and the change has everything to do with that. I'm noticing the mountain, the peaks. This shift that will be happening for you is going to offer you a new level of perspective. And with this new level of perspective, you're going to move confidently forward. So there's a lot more confidence coming to you in 2025. And if that's one of the things that you put in place, a lot more confidence, and that's going to serve you for times to come. I don't know about you, but in my book, having confidence is a good thing. It's not overconfident. It's becoming confident, but also open to experience other things. Okay, confidence, very much highlighted for you, pile number 2. So that's what I have for you, pile number 2. Okay, let me see what we have for pile number 3. What is the energy that you're likely to be working with? Third eye chakra. Third eye. The frequency of the third eye chakra, the indigo flower of life, supports our intuition and our inner knowing, or our imagination and our psychic powers. So you are someone who's likely very psychic anyway, to begin with, or you are aware of your psychic abilities. Some of you may not be, but if you are aware of your psychic abilities, likely in 2025, your vision, your psychic vision is going to expand. You are going to see, it's like you're going to see things and they will be magnified or amplified. Now, from a personal experience, when I have these moments when all of a sudden I'm seeing so much more, it takes a little bit of time to adjust, because sometimes it feels like I'm walking into different worlds, which is a little bit unstable for the ego, because the ego is not used to seeing things that way. So you might feel a little bit wobbly in 2025 as you are adjusting what you're seeing and how you're seeing, but more importantly, the clarity with which you see. You see with so much more clarity. Now, I do want to say, don't become arrogant in that. And I don't know why I want to say it, but don't become arrogant in that. In other words, just because you see it doesn't make it the truth. So this is interesting because, there's many different truths out there. There is apparently this one truth that all there is all there is, but that's not for the little human brain to grasp. We all see a certain snippets of truth, right? We see truth, we see truth, we see truth. We couldn't possibly see all truth because our mind is not capable of seeing all truth. It's too much information. So you might be seeing other things that people are not seeing, but it doesn't mean that what they're seeing is not truth either. So this is really interesting, because what this is pointing to is having clarity in seeing, but also seeing it as a perspective only, not necessarily the entire truth. I'm sure that what it is that I channel, I know there is so much more, but this is the information that I'm being asked to give, because humanity is going through this transformation, and this is supposed to help. Okay. So your psychic eye, pile number 3, is really revving up. Okay. Sometimes we see things we don't want to see, and that can get a little tricky and difficult. Sometimes we can't choose what we see, what we don't see. We see what we see. Also, just because you see something doesn't mean that it's appropriate for you to talk about it. Just because you see something doesn't mean it's appropriate for you to talk about it. So this is talking about discernment. So you might be a clairvision, clairaudient. You might be really good at all the clairs or psychic perception. However, that doesn't give you the license to say everything you perceive, because sometimes that may not be, and in fact is not appropriate. So if you are resonating with this, the need for discernment in 2025 is really, really, really high. And I don't know exactly why I'm saying this, but the need for discernment is really, really, really high. Okay, so that's number 1. Your theme, pulse of life. You are either learning or becoming better at going with the flow. And that simply means that when you go with the flow, you are in much less resistance. When you are in less resistance, you're much less in pain. Okay. Now, some resistance is good, but this is learning or getting better at going with the flow. Now, going with the flow requires trust. Going with the flow requires trust. So you are learning to trust yourself, and because you trust yourself and the universe, perhaps because of what it is that you're seeing, okay, you are much more at ease with going with the flow, much more at ease with going with the flow. And in my experience, when I go with the flow, things get so much easier, which means I am constantly learning how to resist less. And I resist a lot. I'm a human being. And even with the resistance, even though I have this resistance, I'm learning how to go with the flow a little bit more. I'm not letting my resistance stop me. And that's all shadow work. So trusting yourself also means believing in yourself. You are learning, or you're learning how to believe in yourself more. You're becoming someone who believes in him or herself more. Okay? And when you believe in you, the world is your oyster. When you believe in you, the world is your oyster. And I'm not supposed to say anything else. I'm just supposed to let that land for you. Trust. Pile number 3, trust. The sun in reverse, even in reverse, my understanding is that it's a very powerful omen. Let me take a look. It's clarity with regards to perspective. So not dissimilar to the whole overall message. You are seeing clearly because of shift of your perspectives. And that's a big, big thing. Because remember, when we shift our perspectives, our world changes. When we shift our perspectives of what we are capable of, and we see the power within us, we are then in a position to choose that power in whatever ways we want. Otherwise, we don't even know we have a choice. So there's a theme of choices. Choices becoming more clear, having more choices, seeing more choices. The idea of, I see a lot of choices. And perhaps you're changing your perspective is helping you see and realize that you've always had choices. You just didn't know you had them because of the way you saw things and you saw yourself. And that's a very powerful space to be, because what it means is that choices were always there. It's just like you were not able to see it. And because you were not able to see it, you didn't know you had a choice, and therefore you were not able to make a different choice. You are making choices and decisions from a very different space, pile number 3, or that's the year 2025 is making big choices and decisions and taking risks, powerful risks, from a very empowered state, And it has everything to do with how you see yourself. Everything to do with how you see yourself. Positive outlook. That's a standard thing. You know, if you look at life positively, likelihood is you will experience life in more positive ways. That everybody knows that. But this is like you're taking on a more positive outlook. This seeing thing is helping you see things more in a positive way. Example, again, the same one I gave earlier. If you see a house getting torn down and you're only seeing the house, you might think something bad is happening or something unpleasant or unfortunate. But when you see a bigger perspective and you realize, oh, this house has to go so this structure can put in, then that's a reason for celebration. So you are, pile number 3, you are choosing to look at things from a much more positive framework, which means your framework has to change. You have a certain framework through which you see. And that framework is either positively geared or negatively geared. A lot of people have negatively skewed outlooks, and that's part of the past. Pile number 3, you are choosing to no longer have your old outlook create your present and create your future. You are literally leaving your past behind in terms of outlooks, how you see things. I don't know why I want to say. Sometimes you get prickly when you don't get your way. Sometimes you get prickly when you don't get your way. It's a protective mechanism. So if you get prickly with people, just notice what's underneath. There's this, for some of you, you are prickly. You are prickly if you don't get your way. There's some gold nugget hidden underneath of some truth. So I would, if this makes sense to you, I would look at your prickliness. If you tend to be prickly with people, ask yourself, the question, why are you being prickly with them? Because it's a defense mechanism. I'm not being shown what it is, but it is a defense mechanism. Okay, so that's all I have for pile number 3. I hope this was helpful. I will likely be doing the 2025 individual zodiac signs. I think I've decided to do it. If you want it, and I know many of you have asked, because many of you have said that the information that comes through is valid. You've experienced it, so I'm glad to hear that. I love that feedback. So I've decided I might do them a little bit shorter this year. But if you want one, get yourself on my mailing list, and that link is below. And once I have them up, you'll receive an email from me so that you will have them as soon as they come out. And with that said, I wish you a wonderful weekend whenever you are watching this. I look forward to seeing you again. Please do comment and let me know how this information has connected with you. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.